Hey everyone, this is Kunal from Digit, and today we have a new product with us. This is the Asus Zenfone 5. Now, we haven't had any products from Asus other than tablets and laptops or maybe ultrabooks, but this is the first official smartphone which Asus will be launching in India. The Zenfone series, already has been launched, outside of India, but this is what Asus is saying is going to be, coming into India maybe in the second week of July. So this is like a pre-launch device that we have got with us. This is the 5-inch Zenfone. So let's go through a bit, for the phone. As you can see, it has a 2110 mAh battery. There's an IPS display. You have 3G Wi-Fi, 3.5 on audio jack, Bluetooth, an 8 megapixel camera. It has pretty standard specifications if you go by the features, and there's more stuff written on the box. I don't know if you can see. So there's 8 GB of internal memory, there's 2 GB of RAM, and this is an Intel Atom powered device. So yes, this isn't a Qualcomm or a MediaTek or anything, but this is essentially an Intel Atom quad-core based smartphone. So this is a 1.6 gigahertz clock speed on the processor, and along with 2 GB of RAM and a PowerVX GPU. So this is quite not a bad specification. So the Asus Zenfone 5, we don't have an idea of the pricing as of yet because the smartphone will be launching the second week of July. But judging by the price which was announced outside of India, we are hoping that this will come in the 15 to the 18,000 price segment. This is a very good, competitor to the Moto G, and we are honest, has a pretty decent build for the price. Let's talk about some about the build and design of the smartphone. This is essentially a plastic design. The back is also all plastic, but it has a nice matte finish to it, so a nice grip to it, doesn't slip off. You have the 8 megapixel camera at the back with the LED flash, Asus and the logos, and the loudspeaker. On the right edge, we have the power button, which has a nice metal finish, along with a volume control as well. It gives a nice premium feel to it and a nice feedback as well. On the top, we have the 3.5 mm audio jack and a microphone. The bottom has the micro USB port along with another mic. This is probably when you're taking calls. Let me just show you what's underneath the back. Pop it up. So yeah, you have two SIM card slots. So yes, this is a dual SIM smartphone. These are micro SIM card slots, and there is a micro SD card slot as well. The battery is sadly not accessible, so in case you have any issues, you'll have to open these bolts, or better to go to a service station. So yeah, coming back to the display, this is an IPS panel. This is a 5-inch 720p display. The viewing angles are not so bad on the device, but I think there's some issue with the brightness. I don't know if this is a unit problem or something, but we didn't like the brightness levels on the display. It seems a little dull, but overall I think the touch response is fine. Overall, the colors look decent, but it needed a bit more of a punch. So you have the front 2.1 megapixel camera here, sorry, 2 megapixel camera here, the earpiece. You have your usual Android 3 navigation buttons, which are pretty good on response. And there's a nice metal accent right below, and it has a texture to it. It gives a nice feel to the whole smartphone. I think it's a very sturdy looking smartphone. It is pretty slim when you're on the edges, but because of the curve, it's a little bulky. It gives a nice, although it gives a nice feel in the palm, it fits well. But I think could have been a little slimmer, and the weight could have been a little less. And especially the bezels, they are quite thick. Asus could have trimmed them down a bit, but I guess everything works for a reason. So yeah, not a bad design on the Zenfone 5, and if it's probably somewhere around 15 or maybe 16,000 rupees, I think one of the best design smartphones that you can get on the market. So let me just take you through some of the UI and the performance levels of this smartphone. As we said that this runs on a Intel Atom-based chipset, and this is a 1.6 gigahertz quad-core processor with 2 GB of RAM and PowerVX GPU. This is currently running on Android 4.3 Jelly Bean, and the overall performance seems pretty smooth. Everyday performance, and apps running pretty good. Multitasking is fine, and the 2 GB helps a lot. When you're running a lot of apps. So ASUS has put their own custom UI on it. We haven't seen this UI on any of the tablets or as such, but it does look pretty neat. It has like a transparent kind of widgets on top. You have customized icons which look nice. I mean, not too heavy on the system. Basically, more of stockish kind of Android UI, but it works pretty well and pretty smooth. We didn't see any issues whatsoever. As you can see, the animations roll up really nicely on the display. Everything is working quite nice. Uh, Talking about the performance, we did some benchmarks on the smartphone, including AnTuTu, Quadrant, 3D Mark, and the usual stuff that we do. And we saw that the performance is slightly better than if you want to compare it. The best performance we've gotten, the segment that we are hoping that the smartphone will fall in, the Moto G, for instance. We compared the results, and as you can see, the Zenfone 5 is actually better and performs better than the Moto G, which has a Snapdragon processor. But the Intel somehow giving us a better performance level in the synthetic benchmarks. Now, yes, the benchmarks aren't always the best way to judge the performance, but I think everything on the smartphone doesn't it didn't give us any issues on running any apps or games. So let me just quickly show you a bit of gameplay. Alright, so let's play a bit of Dead Trigger 2. A slight stutter we saw here and there, but overall I think the gameplay is smooth. Starting Dynamite here. A bit of a stutter here and there. Gameplay isn't very smooth, but I guess the graphics and the overall details in the game is not so bad. We did see when the game gets very intensive, we do see minor lags, probably because the GPU isn't able to handle so much of the load. But I think the gaming performance is not so bad. Overall, we had a good experience on the Zenfone 5. So as we said, the gaming performance is quite decent on it. We weren't pretty much happy with it because at certain instances we did see slight stuttering in the games. But overall, the graphics performance is not that bad. Judging, this won't be like a premium device, and Intel processors aren't, we don't have a huge clue about what kind of performance level they will give. So yeah, the performance pretty much decent for what you get on the Zenfone 5. Apart from when you're gaming, the handset doesn't heat all that much. Although we did see very slightly, heating at the back, which is very normal for any Android device, as we have tested before. Going to the battery, this has a 2110 mAh battery. So we did our standard battery test, and we found that if you're running a full HD video after charging it at 100%, it lost at about 10 to 12% of battery, which means that if you have a full HD video, you can go on for like about 8.5 hours, which is I think pretty decent for a smartphone at this price range. So the Zenfone 5 has a 2110 mAh battery, and we did our standard battery test to see how much of the juice it can give. So we ran a full HD video after charging the device at 100%, and we found that it lost about 10 to 12% of battery, and if that so that means if you're running a full HD video, you can get about 8.5 hours of non-stop playback. Now this isn't bad at judging that it has an Intel processor, and we've known that Intel processors aren't very good with battery, and even comparing it with other Snapdragon equipped smartphones, this is not a bad performance on the battery side. Talking about the camera, this has an 8 megapixel rear camera, and the UI is very simple, nothing nothing out of the ordinary. You get your standard settings, your controls for exposure, your camera resolution, and stuff like video settings. You also get a bunch of standard filters, which includes black and white, negative, sepia, and a bit more. And there's also the front cam, which is 2 megapixels. So you can take video calls, you can take your selfies and all that. You also get a bit of filters and some modes on the camera. You get time rewind, HDR, panorama, night mode, low light, and stuff like that. There's also a depth of field and miniature mode, which essentially brings your depth of field to a very low level, giving you a nice, more of a natural looking picture. So the camera quality overall, I guess it's pretty decent. We've seen better smartphones with 8 megapixel sensors on it. As you can see, the images are very standard, nothing very big. Colors are slightly low on the, or slightly less vivid. The saturation level basically is a little low. Contrast details are fine. There's not a huge difference if you compare it to a very standard low budget smartphone. So the camera department is pretty much okay. We weren't so impressed, but judging by if it falls under like a mid segment, so can't expect a lot. But if you're like an avid shooter, you like clicking pictures here and there, the 8 megapixel camera on the ASUS ZenFone 5 isn't a bad camera at all. The colors might be a little saturated, but yes, pictures come out pretty decent. Even in low light conditions, the camera manages to get some shots, but of course, it performs way better if you have proper lighting. You can also shoot full HD videos with the camera, so that is becoming a very standard thing on almost every camera phones that we got today. So the overall performance on the ZenFone 5 isn't that bad, considering it has an Intel processor. We weren't very sure that how much of a performance level this smartphone would give, but surprisingly, comparing the benchmark scores and the overall day-to-day performance of apps and all, I think it's not a bad option. Certainly, if it falls somewhere around the 15 to the 18,000 mark, we're saying that again and again because we don't know the exact price point of the smartphone. It could be a very good buy to get something if you're looking for something in the middle, mid-range. If you don't want a Moto G or maybe like you don't want a Windows phone, I think the ZenFone 5 works pretty good. Gaming is pretty decent. The camera is also nice. Battery performance was surprisingly good. Overall, not a bad performer. So the digit verdict basically on the ZenFone 5 is that very honestly we don't know the price as of yet because this will be launching soon. So judging by what the price we have seen in the international market, we think this will fall somewhere in the middle segment, which is about 15 to 18, and could be giving a good competition to the Moto G. The build and design is not so bad, and we really liked how ASUS has gone very detailed on the smartphone. The finishing is nice. The keys and the slight metal accent at the bottom. We were pretty impressed by the design. The performance levels aren't also that bad. We know that this runs on an Intel processor, and we didn't have very high hopes with this. But surprisingly, the performance level is pretty good. Even gaming, day-to-day tasks, emailing, social media networking, and everything works very well. And it has 2 GB of RAM, so you don't have any issues when you're multitasking on the device. The camera is pretty decent for an 8 megapixel shooter, and the battery life was actually good. So overall, I think what we would think on the smartphone is it's a pretty decent buy once it gets launched, and if it definitely falls somewhere around 15,000 budget, it will be actually a very good buy.